The once sacred expanse of the Cedar Forest loomed before them, warped, hollowed, wounded. Its towering trees twisted beneath the weight of eroded corruption. The golden light that had once crowned its canopy flickered like a dying ember, strangled by slithering psionic tendrils, pulsating with a malevolent hunger. The very earth beneath them groaned under the weight of its affliction, its veins blackened and writhing. A whisper, a shudder, a presence. The wind did not whisper wisdom as it once had. It howled with something ancient and restless. Gilgamesh's grip tightened around his golden axe, his keen eyes scanning the shifting shadows. Beside him, Enkidu knelt, pressing his palm to the earth, feeling the land's agony, its desperate plea for salvation. Then the forest breathed in, and as it exhaled, the ground trembled. A deep, resonant growl rumbled through the trees, low and seismic, as though the very bones of the forest were stirring. The shadows within the trees moved. The corrupted canopy split apart. Darkness peeled away as something massive emerged. Humbaba had awakened. The being before them was no longer the guardian of the Cedar Forest. His majestic form, sculpted from the very breath of the earth, had been transformed into a nightmare of biomechanical monstrosity. His skin, once a tapestry of nature's power, was now encased in living metal, infused with eroded psionic tendrils that pulsed like veins. His eyes, once green like the leaves of the sacred trees, now burned red, radiating psionic malice. He moved with a terrifying fluidity, his massive frame no longer bound by the weight of flesh alone, but by something far worse. "Who dares tread upon my forest?" His voice reverberated like thunder, but beneath it was something else: pain, confusion, and rage. Gilgamesh and Enkidu took their stances. "You were the guardian, Humbaba," Gilgamesh declared, stepping forward, his golden aura flickering. "You protected this land for ages. Look at what has become of it. Look at what they have done to you." Humbaba laughed, a hollow, corrupted sound. "You come to restore me?" His monstrous form lurched forward, metal plating grinding as his psionic tendrils flared with burning green fire. "What is there to restore? I am more than what I was." The air shook as Humbaba raised his clawed, biomechanical hand and slammed it down, sending a psionic shockwave through the forest. The two warriors were thrown back, trees splintering around them. Enkidu recovered first, rolling to his feet, his body bruised but unbroken. "You are wrong," he growled, stepping toward the corrupted giant. Humbaba's piercing gaze fixed upon Enkidu. "And what of you, wild one?" His voice slithered between words and psionic thought, a whisper and a roar all at once. "You speak of freedom, yet you are the furthest thing from it." A pulse of green psionic energy crackled across his body, illuminating the biomechanical lattice that fused him with the eroder's will. "You were crafted like I was, shaped by hands beyond this world, molded into a tool, given a name, a purpose." Enkidu's breath hitched, his muscles tensing at the weight of those words. "You are a servant." The forest trembled as Humbaba took a slow step forward, his biomechanical plating grinding against itself, his psionic tendrils flaring with malice. "You do not belong to Uruk. You do not belong to the wilds. You do not belong anywhere." A beat of silence, a moment that stretched into eternity. Enkidu flinched. For all his strength, for all his defiance, Humbaba's words cut deeper than any blade. But then, slowly, he lifted his head. His wild black hair whipped in the corrupted wind, his breath steady. "I was born of the earth," Enkidu said, his voice not shaking but resolute. "And unlike you, I choose my own path." Humbaba's laughter echoed again. "Lies!" His tendrils flared, his massive form shifting as he charged. "You think you are free? Yet you fight for those who created you. You and I are no different." And with a thunderous roar, he charged. Gilgamesh intercepted, his golden axe meeting Humbaba's crushing blow. The impact sent a shockwave across the battlefield. "We are nothing like you," Gilgamesh snarled, pushing back with all his might. Humbaba roared, his psionic energy crackling, and the two warriors were sent hurling back once more. Deep beneath Uruk, within the psionic abyss of her eroder lair, Ereshkigal watched. Her tendrils of corruption wove tighter around Humbaba, feeding him power. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural, malevolent light. "You will not falter," she whispered into the void. A wave of dark psionic energy surged into Humbaba. His movement became faster, his wounds sealed instantly, his attacks came with devastating precision. The golden tree, the heart of the Cedar Forest, withered further, its radiant leaves falling away, its roots curling towards the abyss. The battle was slipping beyond their grasp. Far beyond the turmoil of the Cedar Forest, where mortal battles raged and fate trembled on the edge of a blade, the temple of EP4 and Enkidu pulsed with a light unseen by human eyes. Before the Enkidu core, its golden glyphs shifting like the constellation themselves, Ninsun knelt, her hands trembling over its surface. She could feel the battle unraveling. Gilgamesh and Enkidu were faltering, their blows mighty yet meaningless against Humbaba's endless regeneration. And she could feel something worse. Ereshkigal. A festering rot in the cosmic weave, a force that did not belong, warping the very balance the Guardians had sworn to uphold. She turned to Shamash, the Guardian of Justice, his form shimmering with celestial radiance. His eyes, like twin stars, gazed upon the battle below, not with anger, but with the weight of immortal law. "Shamash," Ninsun's voice was steady but desperate. "You must intervene." Shamash stood motionless. "We do not interfere." You watch as Ereshkigal weaves her corruption into the very fabric of life, Ninsun pressed. "If we do nothing, then we allow this desecration." Shamash did not respond immediately. He turned, gazing into the Cosmic Orb, the heart of the Enkidu core. Within its depths, the essence of creation swirled, a storm of ancient energy, woven from the breath of the very first stars, pulsing with the raw will of the universe. A decision was made. Above the battlefield, the sky tore open. The cosmic orb within EP4 and Enkidu pulsed once, then again, faster. It unleashed a silent shockwave across the heavens. Shamash's form expanded, his celestial radiance surging outward, his arms outstretched as he became a conduit for the will of the universe. The glyphs of the Enkidu core aligned, their cosmic sigils forming an unbreakable lattice, a mystic script of light written across the fabric of reality itself. And then the cosmic orb ignited, a beam of golden radiance, more than light, more than fire, more than power, descended from the heavens. It was not destruction, it was justice. The psionic chains of Ereshkigal trembled, writhing as though in agony. No! The voice of Ereshkigal shrieked through the ether, her psionic web unraveling as the divine force of the Cosmic Orb severed her grip, her tendrils withering into the void. The connection shattered, and at that moment, Humbaba was alone. The beast staggered, his psionic veins crackling, the darkness within him breaking apart like the dying embers. His gaze flickered, his breath faltered, his mind was finally his own. Then Gilgamesh and Enkidu struck. Humbaba's monstrous form lurched, his body twitching as the eroder corruption was burned away, leaving behind only the fading embers of what he once was. Silence fell over the battlefield, a moment of pure, unbroken stillness. And then the guardian of the Cedar Forest collapsed to his knees. Shamash lowered his hand, his form dimmed as the Cosmic Orb's radiance faded. The battle had shifted. The Guardians had interfered. Humbaba staggered, his monstrous frame collapsing onto the ruined earth. The eroder corruption peeled away, its unnatural tendrils writhing and burning into nothingness as the severed psionic chains dissipated into the void. The twisted biomechanical plating that had fused with his flesh cracked and crumbled, revealing something ancient, something sacred beneath. The guardian of the Cedar Forest, in his final moments, was no longer a monster. What remained was a being of wisdom, of strength, of untamed majesty, a warrior who had stood against the darkness for untold ages, only to be consumed by the very thing he once fought. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stood over him, their chests heaving, but the thrill of battle was gone. Victory felt hollow. Gilgamesh's golden aura flickered, dimmed by something unfamiliar. Not exhaustion, not pride, regret. He stared at Humbaba's face. It was no longer twisted in rage. It was peaceful. The light in his eyes, the last vestige of his guardian soul, flickered softly, like the dying embers of a fire. Gilgamesh swallowed hard, his fingers curled around the handle of his axe, but there was no power in the grip. This was not, he hesitated, something deep inside of him resisting the words. He exhaled. This was not the justice we sought. Enkidu fell to his knees beside Humbaba, his hand trembling as he reached out, but stopped just before touching him. Humbaba's gaze drifted skyward, through the ruined canopy, where Shamash's light still flickered in the heavens. The first golden rays of the morning sun pierced the darkness. Gilgamesh and Enkidu watched in silence as the guardian turned his head slightly, his lips parting for one final breath. The chains are broken. The words carried like the whisper of the wind, slipping into the roots of the forest, into the very bones of the earth. No more shackles, no more rot. The forest breathes again. As he exhaled one last time, his form began to dissolve, the remnants of his guardian essence returning to the cosmos. His body became golden motes of light, carried by the wind, sinking into the soil, the roots, the trees. The Cedar Forest trembled, not in fear, not in despair, in renewal. The majestic golden tree, the heart of the forest, blossomed once more. Its leaves, long withered, flared with radiant life, shedding the last remnants of eroder corruption. The twisted veins that had strangled its roots uncoiled, their unnatural grip releasing as the earth healed around them. But for Gilgamesh and Enkidu, there was no triumph in this moment, only silence. The ground where Humbaba had lain was now empty, save for the lingering warmth of his final words. Enkidu turned away first, his jaw clenched, his hands trembling. Was there another way? Gilgamesh didn't answer. He knew the truth. They had won, but at what cost? As Gilgamesh and Enkidu approached the towering walls of Uruk, the golden glow of the Ankai core shimmered above the city, casting a radiant light upon the streets below. Word of their triumph over Humbaba had spread like wildfire, carried by the whispers of the wind and the eager tongues of travelers who had glimpsed the battle from afar. The gates of Uruk swung open, and the roar of celebration met them. Men, women, and children flooded the streets, their voices rising in a thunderous cheer, their hands reaching out as if to touch the warriors who had done the impossible. The air was thick with the scent of incense and fresh offerings, flowers, petals cascading from the rooftops as the people hailed their king and his companion. The high priests of the temple of Temen Ankai bowed low before them, acknowledging not just the power of Gilgamesh, but the balance he now carried at his side. Ninsun watched from the temple steps, her eyes filled with both pride and sorrow. Her son had returned victorious, but the weight of what he had done was etched into his very being. Humbaba's death was not something he carried lightly. She had seen it in his dreams before he left, and now she saw it in his eyes. But the people did not see that. They saw only the legend. They saw the two titans who had ventured into the corrupted depths of the Cedar Forest and emerged victorious. They saw gods among men. Far beneath the golden splendor of Uruk, the abyssal depths where light did not reach, another voice screamed in fury. Ereshkigal watched from her lair below the earth, the ruins of her psionic tether to Humbaba still flickering with dying energy. Her monstrous creation, her masterpiece of corruption, her key to unmaking the Guardian's grip on this world was gone. The biomechanical veins that once pulsed with her power now lay severed, their tendrils twitching and curling into ash. The psionic lattice she had so carefully woven into Humbaba's mind had been burned away by Shamash's divine interference. The forest had been saved, her plans had failed, and above her, Uruk rejoiced. The people she had long sought to see broken and desperate were instead raising their voices in joy. She could hear their songs of praise, their laughter, their adoration of the two warriors who had defied her will. The sound of it scraped against her mind like molten iron. Her psionic tendrils lashed out, shattering stone, ripping through the walls of her chamber. The very ground beneath Uruk shuddered at her wrath. But then, from the void, something answered. A presence, a hunger. She reached into the darkness, into the abyss where the eroder's greatest weapons lay in waiting. And there she found it, the Bull of Heaven. Ereshkigal's lips curled into a twisted smile as she laid her hand upon the massive slumbering form. The bull stirred, its biomechanical plating shifting, its psionic core pulsing with deep, malevolent energy. This was not a mere beast. This was a force of annihilation, a living storm of destruction that had laid waste to cities across the stars, had trampled civilizations into dust. As Uruk sang the names of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, Ereshkigal's voice echoed in the abyss, dark and vengeful. Rejoice while you can, King of Uruk. Your city will burn. Your name will be forgotten. Her eyes burned with psionic fury. I summon the Bull of Heaven. Join me in the next episode as we witness the great cosmic battle between the Bull of Heaven and the two warriors. A force of devastation unleashed, a trial beyond mortal reckoning. Who shall stand and who shall fall? The fate of Uruk hangs in the balance.